Stephanie Painter.
And I'm Hayley Painter.
And thank you, Christine, who has been a great person to work with for the past 2 roundtables and the last 2 days, and that everyone here. It's been amazing to talk with you guys about your experiences and to get to know everyone. This is our first time at the Regenerate Conference, and we're just so excited to be here.
We feel super inspired, and I hope you all do as well. And we're super excited to come back next year. So let's get into it.
Yeah, so again, I'm Stephanie Painter, and this is
Hayley Painter.
And we are the Painterland Sisters. So we grew up on our family's 4th generation organic dairy farm in northern Pennsylvania. And right here you can see that's our dad and the 2 of us overlooking the home farm. So perfect place to, 1, grow up, and 2, to graze animals, especially dairy cattle.
So let us set the scene. Northern PA. It's pretty rural. We're about an hour from any grocery store. We grew up with 13 cousins on top of a hill, but still in a valley, with these crossbred cattle, and we thought all cattle looked like that. We grew up thinking that everyone was farmers and that everyone ate canned vegetables in the winter and processed their own chickens in the summer. So when we got out into the world, we quickly realized that's not how it was, but we had a very beautiful upbringing, and we didn't realize how special it was.
Yep, we grew up barefoot, milking cows, and shoveling you know what. And when we were in high school, on the weekends, we wondered why we had to do that. But as we continued to grow up and we got into college and really understood that as 2 young women, we were always talking to our friends and everyone that would listen to us about what it means to know your farmer and what it means not just for the health of our bodies, but for Mother Earth. And we realized very quickly only 17% of people know a farmer, and that it was our destinies, I guess, to educate on why it's important to know a farmer. So we are here trying to keep farmers farming.
So that idyllic life, we quickly realized that people were disconnected, and we had this passion, and almost got annoyed. One of the most memorable times, I was in college, and a guy, he had a test, and he thought he did bad, and he's like, oh my goodness, if I fail this test, I'm just gonna have to drop out and become a farmer, right? What? You don't even know any farmers. You know how hard that is? And then when we were in high school, we had a substitute teacher, and he asked who were farmers. I didn't raise my hand, as I wasn't a farmer. We just milked cows and fed calves and hauled hay and picked rock, which is not fun.
Yeah, and later we found out that there's something you can buy, a rock picker, and my dad was like, why do I need to do that when I have my 2 daughters? So anyways.
But we didn't know we were farmers, right? We weren't proud of it. And why? Although we had this beautiful life that you probably all experienced as you were growing up on the farm or got there as soon as you could, the other part of it is farmers are struggling, right? They're not making a lot of money. They're not making the money that they should. The reason that we eat ground beef for, almost every other dinner as a dairy farmer is because it was a cold cow, and it was something that we could afford. And so farmers are going out of business at a drastic level. And our family farm that we loved, had this dream to keep doing for generations, was at risk of going out of business. We're at risk of selling the cows because the milk market was unstable. It's been unstable for a while. And so as we were growing up, we kind of missed that. But the pressure became on our shoulders, not just our parents, as we saw what was going on. Mm-hmm. And 2018 was kind of the last straw for us, and we set in the sand that we wanted to do something to sustain our farm and other farms in the area for generations, because end of 2018, we started getting overflow conventional pricing for organic milk. So $7 a hundredweight. We were used to 26. This was for 3 months. And we were just happy we got that $7 because when the milk truck driver would come and pick our milk up, he'd say, I don't know if I'm going to come in 2 days. This might be your last time. So we had a serious conversation as a family. We were going to sell the cows that have been on our land since 1941. COVID happened, stabilized the milk market in our area, northern PA. But before this and around this time, hundreds of farmers in that area were going out. And it's happening nationwide.
In the last 7 years, 140,000 farms have went out of business, and every single year, 2 million acres of farmland is gone. And one of our jobs, as we have now discovered, is to explain to people why that's important. Well, because if we're lucky, we all eat 3 times a day, and so we have to keep farmers farming and keep that farmland preserved.
So we set out on a mission. We wanted to connect consumers to the direct source of their food, the American farmer, and make a value-added product that we could really stabilize this system so we could take our destinies in our own hand and keep them farming for generations to come.
We did not want to be another statistic, so we figured out what makes us unique. We're young women. So we started this whole journey, really rock and rolled, when Hayley was 22 and I was 24. And we went out, okay, what makes our farm different? What makes our, basically our product different? And so the regenerative farming practices, that word was just starting to come out. And we like to say, when we were growing up, we would walk up hills in Pennsylvania, and when we got to college, they called that hiking, and we're like, oh, it's hiking. Okay, we thought it was just called walking. Well, our farm started in 1941, and since the beginning of our farm, we have had regenerative practices on our land. And so when that word came up, we're like, oh, yeah, like that's what we're doing. We are also certified organic. So we switched, we got certified organic in 2003, and it was very easy for our farm to do so because we were already organic, we were already regenerative. It was already happening. We just got the certification. We're also a certified woman-owned business, and that's helped us with many things, especially sales acquisition into retailers and really differentiating ourselves that way. We're a mother-owned business. My 3 kids are right there. And so from one mother to another, we've got you, and we wanted to not just share the transparency, but also the vulnerability of people and the limited amount of choices that they have on their store shelves. So 80% of the buying power is women, and we did a lot of research, and we were like, okay, well, from one woman to another, like, let's figure out how to really differentiate ourselves there. So we found a gap in the market. We have a organic skyr yogurt, like skiing, and it's just Icelandic for yogurt. And as Christine mentioned, we're now in all 50 states, and by the end of the year, we're going to be in 4,000 retail locations. That's 6 million yogurts in our second year of business that we're able to sell, and that is a huge opportunity to really, every single yogurt that we can get into somebody's hands opens up different conversations about the importance of nutrient density in our bodies, but what knowing a farmer means to, again, our health of our bodies and Mother Earth going forward. So we really utilize the yogurt as a marketing tool, but our yogurt is...
I was going to say, who tried the yogurt in the last 2 days?
Okay, cool. So it's extra creamy, defiantly dreamy. We got the 6% milk fat in there. We're real dairy girls. We want all that double cream. And it is.
She keeps stealing my lines.
Sisters.
No, we're used to going back and forth. But the difference between us is it is like super tasty, but it's also really nutrient dense. We pack all the nutrients in there, and the packaging is really fun. And so while we started this yogurt business, we were like, all right, once we turn this milk into a value-added product and have our own market, we're going to be good. Everything's going to be set. Like, the farm's going to be saved. Mm-hmm. Then we started this business, and we realized CPG, consumer packaged goods, over 90% of startup food brands go out of business. Over 90%. That's higher than the national rate of an average business. So this is a bigger problem. We can't just help the farmers. We have to change the whole supply chain because we need more diversity in food brands, but at the same time, consumers are more nutrient deficient than ever before. So the products that are on the shelves, because there's a lack of diversity in food brands, 90% of the brands on the grocery store shelves are owned by only 10 companies. That means there's a lack of options for nutrients, and it's a race to the bottom, and products are being diluted of nutrients. So man, now we have a problem. We have this brand. We have to not only fight for farmers need to be paid better and have their stories heard, but we also need to fight for our consumers because they need more nutrients and options in that, and more diversity for the farmers to sell to these brands, and brands to have more options to buy these products, to really bridge the gap between consumers and farmers.
And again, like what we had to do, we had a lot of milk. We milk 400 cows twice a day on our farm. So we needed to push out a lot of milk into the world, and it's organic milk. And then we had minimum order quantities and different things to push through our machinery at our co-packing facility. So we had to get big quick. We thought we were going to have honestly, we wanted to have like a farm stand, and we wanted to connect to our community in that way. And as we realized, like we needed to get big, we needed to saturate the natural channel in the United States with our yogurt so that we can continue our family's farm and the 25 other farms that we now support. And so,
Baby, go back.
oh, okay.
So yogurt is a conduit for that change, right? We have the change to bridge the gap, to not only help the farmers, but to help the consumers and the diversity throughout the supply chain. And how can we lead with that change? Because every single cup of yogurt, this is usually her line.
I already said it, but every single cup of yogurt is that just the change. It gives us the opportunity to educate. And so again, 6 million cups of yogurt this year gives us 6 million opportunities to just talk, to not just go over people's head with all this great information, but to make the information that we're giving as palatable as our yogurt.
We're really excited about the regenerative movement because it's an opportunity for farmers and ranchers. Sorry we say farmers, we're from the East Coast, but farmers and ranchers, all stewards, to really like take control of their narrative and showcase the amazing work we're all doing that sometimes doesn't get displayed, but also have it support the health of the animals, the stewards, the farmers, and the environment, and have it all related to our society because it's all interconnected. We need a regenerative ecosystem. We need healthy soils. We need healthy environment and water streams. We need animals that are out and mobile and socializing and the healthiest they can be because it's not just about yield, it's about health throughout the supply chain. Can you go to the next slide? And so the regenerative supply chain is a really important philosophy because in order to support our farmers and our consumers, we need to make sure everyone is healthy throughout this entire thing as energy flows from the soil to the animals, through the environment, to the supply chains of the freight, going to the processing plants, being made into great products, distributed out into the retailers and onto consumer shelves. The whole thing allows it to reinvigorate and regenerate back into our supply chain so that farmers can have financially enough funds to keep going. The land has more enough biodiversity to flourish, and the animals are happy and healthy, leaving the consumers with a very nutrient-dense product. It's all together, and there's so many struggles across this whole thing, so let's work together and pull it together, and it's a great opportunity and a movement to really innovate.
Yes, so we have one hand in food and one hand in agriculture, and so that you would think in the food world that it starts with agriculture, and we all know that, but it's completely disconnected. Like I mentioned before, only 17% of people know a farmer, and so we have found our mission to explain why it's important to know a farmer, not just with our yogurt and utilizing that, but we have to innovate the storytelling. We have all this wonderful, beautiful information, but there's two things when we really start like hammering into our friends that we noticed. One, they shut down because we're like, hey, you have to eat this way because it's better for your body and it's better for the land, and they kind of shut down and get defensive. Or two, what we're saying just goes over their heads and it glazes their eyes over. So what we try to do here at Painterland Sisters is make the information fun and palatable, and then they want more. They're very inspired to discuss with their other people and ask questions. And so this is an example of how we are innovating in our storytelling. We have a great graphic designer, and we're like, hey, how can we show a picture of connecting the farm to the stores? Okay, well, she lays it all out. And this is what we're able to do here is when we go to different events and stuff, we're able to show this image and then start telling the story this way because people we all know this, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on TikTok, we like information in bite-sized pieces, and that's what we need to do with the storytelling for regenerative agriculture, sustainable agriculture, and everything that we're doing here, because that's gonna make the biggest change to get to the masses of people. So lots of fun storytelling. We utilize the storytelling in a lot of different ways. One of those was to take quick little videos of our farm and us explaining about how we farm and our nutrient-dense products, just to get meetings with these retail stores. So it was really difficult to get on retail shelves. And our videos, which was literally our friend videographer, and he does a really good job, but it wasn't anything crazy because we were really broke. I mean, we still are, but we needed to show them, connect emotion to what we're doing here. And we literally are basically in a pasture, right? Our house is surrounded by the fields. And so we were able to go out, take pictures, and then show not only our consumers, but the people who can get us in front of more consumers, which are great partners, retail partners like Sprouts, Natural Grocers, and Whole Foods.
And whoever your consumer is, this philosophy will work, right? Our storytelling as farmers and ranchers, as food brands, is so important, and it needs to be told and needs to be heard, so that we feel aligned and together in this movement, because food is all a part of the agriculture system. It's not just on the farmers, and it's not just on the food brands. We got to tie them together. So if you're selling at a farmer's market, if you have a cute 30-second video that shares what's actually going on in your farm, or a minute video of the values that you instill every day, you can share that and show that. It gives credibility to what you're doing, and who knows, something that you're doing might not be trendy now, right? Like, think about the grass-fed movement. That wasn't trendy all the time. It's trendy now because people spoke out about it. So if you're doing something really innovative, break it down, make it bite-sized, make it fun, and get it out to your consumers.
So as Christine mentioned, we got Forbes 30 under 30, and why that was really important for us is because we got an agriculture brand, dairy, which we're trying to make dairy cool, especially when we launched the dairy brand, plant-based was actually going up, and so we needed to make dairy cool. To us, that was like, okay, this is actually resonating with people. We're talking about what animal protein means in their body, but what grazing animals mean to our environment as well, and it was really a moment where, like, okay, what we're doing is somehow working, right? And so we've been in great publications and like Country Living magazine, Travel and Leisure, Tim Tebow loves our yogurt. And why this is all important is because, again, like, it multiplies the information that we're explaining and getting out there, then that's being taken out into these big publications that can tell the story about the importance of knowing your farmer and sustainable agriculture. And so we're really excited about the resonation that we really have pushed in this whole journey.
We sold our first cup of yogurt March of 2022, but we started our social media page 2 years before that, and we marketed our story before we had a product. We got into Country Living. They picked us up because they saw our social media page, and we had like 1,000 followers.
Maybe
so
not even.
Not like we had a ton, right? But they liked the storytelling, and we got on there. We got into our local news station, our Tri-County State news article. They did a phenomenal job creating it together. We wouldn't have the budget to do that. That went viral on LinkedIn. When I say viral, it was like 200 people watching it. But it gave us credibility for Central Market buyer in Texas to hear about our small little yogurt brand in Pennsylvania. They were the first ones to buy it outside of our state, and it allowed us to get into the largest distributor nationwide because we put the story out there and we told it. And who knows who's going to pick it up and read it or see it.
And to our point earlier, information is only as good as your ability to communicate it. So we have a ton of great information here, and what we're doing here at Painterland Sisters is just making it bite-sized, palatable, fun, and that's that first step to get people to really start thinking about the food that they eat and what that really means, again, not just for their bodies and the health of their children's bodies, but for their Mother Earth that we really need to do something about, or we're only going to be here for a couple more decades, realistically. And so, again, making the information palatable, making the products yummy. So our yogurt is the tool to do that.
And whatever product you have, it doesn't have to be a product. It can be a service, it can be a philosophy, it can be values. Just communicating that with your community, getting it involved. You saw we donated the yogurts here today. When we first got started, no one wanted to buy our yogurt or hear who Painterland Sisters was. But we had 14,000 units when we first started, and they were all going to go to waste. We didn't have one person to buy our product. We had a huge bank loan. So what did we do? We took that yogurt and we donated it to the Farm Bureau meetings, the Dairy Center of Excellence meetings, all the meetings in our local community, just so we could get it in front of people so we can start having conversations and communicate what we want to do. Is you put it out in the world, something good is going to come from it, especially if you hold true to your values while you're doing it and don't let them sway along the way.
Yes. So our
our path to a successful regenerative agriculture ecosystem involves farmers. It involves farmers, food brands, animals, the land, the distributors, and the consumers. We're all in this thing, right? A lot of times, if you think about agriculture, do you think about the food on the grocery store shelves? Raise your hand.
Whoa.
As a farmer, I never thought agriculture counted when I looked at that food on the shelves. We all make that food, right? Food, fiber, and fuel, that comes from agriculture. That is agriculture. And we need to make sure that it's being passed through in a regenerative way all the way to the consumer, or it's only going to bottleneck us. We're making society, agriculture is the backbone of our society. We're making it happen, right? Without agriculture, there wouldn't be food, fiber, and fuel. So we need to ensure the integrity of the nutrients stays, the integrity of our storytelling stays, and to really innovate and regenerate this future so that our farmers are financially fit, so that our consumers have nutrient-dense choices, and so that there's diversity in food brands and options of processing and other attributes of our system between the farmer all the way to the end consumer.
So again, just use your voice as much as you can. Cute infographics have definitely helped us as like our regeneratively farmed right there with the apples looking like little hearts, and our honestly there's a snippet of our social media page. Again, positive, fun. This is what works for our brand. Being open. We like to, when people think about Painterland Sisters, we grew up, Grandma Painter, anytime anybody walked in the farmhouse, she would say, hey, do you want a cup of coffee and a piece of pie? And then she would just start talking about life. And that's what we really want to invoke in people, the positive openness, we want to let them feel comfortable asking us information. And so our yogurt is just an extension of who we are, homegrown girls, farmers that really want to just connect with the world. So thank you so much. Find our yogurt near you and keep enjoying it and keep doing what you all do, which is amazing.
Thank you.
Okay, we do have time for a couple of questions if you all want to. If you don't want to answer questions, that's cool too.
It's okay. We're like, okay, I think we started talking too much, so we should probably get off the stage now.
No, it's all, we got time.
So I'm curious how you get the lactose out of your yogurt.
Yeah, so I'm going to point that up by 68% of people have some sort of lactose sensitivity. So when we were thinking about our differentiation for our product, we're dairy farmers. We want everyone to enjoy real dairy. We literally add a lactase enzyme, and it breaks down the milk sugar. So your body doesn't have to.
During the culturing process. Lactose is just milk sugar stuck together, and so you just break it down in the culturing process, so it's easy digestion.
Okay, we have one over here.
Thanks so much for sharing your story. It's very inspiring. I know you touched on it a little bit, but I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more about your experience with how you got to being in retail stores, and did you start by just selling at your local farmers market or some small independent grocery stores, and then how you were able to make it to some of these really large retail grocers?
Yeah, totally. So when we started taking videos. We were going to do eggs and meat and absolutely everything, and it wasn't going to be yogurt.
Everything but yogurt.
Yeah, everything but yogurt. And anyways, when we started going down the path of like, how are we going to sustain our family's milk, right? We were like, wow, we have a lot of milk. And we just did a whole processing facility on paper, and then we realized at the end of constructing that out and the business plan when it came to that wow, if we put all this milk through this new $10 million processing facility, where are we going to sell it at? And so at that point, we had a bank meeting for a loan in 1 month, and we pivoted and we scrapped building our own processing facility. We found out the word co-packer, and in Pennsylvania, we partnered with 10th Generation Icelandic Yogurt Maker, and then it was like, okay, this is the most nutrient-dense product, that most nutrient-dense way that we can put our milk into, and we feel really good about how pure and amazing and delicious it tastes. Anyway, so at that point, he had minimum orders that we had to run through that machinery. And we also, again, had a lot of milk that we wanted to push out. So at that moment, it went from meat, eggs, and stuff like on an online farmer's market to holy smokes. How are we going to get a $3 yogurt out into the world when you have Yoplait and basically everyone else?
And we were very naive. The minimums at first were 14,000 units we had to produce a week. And within 4 months, it was going to scale up to 60,000 units. And we thought our community of 1,000 people were going to be able to eat it. And then we thought the whole state of Pennsylvania would be able to support it. We quickly realized we had to become national in order to support our minimums. And so we did everything we could to get those first couple products into people's mouths, to get them to try it, telling them, what we needed to do. We had a business plan that we wrote, and that we started 4 years before that. With that business plan, we were able to get consultants. With the consultants, we were able to have experts in the industry like brokers and distributors and salespeople connected to us so that we could get a good plan and talk to the right people. So we started talking to brokers while also working our local community and trying to find local distributors.
We knew we didn't know how to do this. And Grandma Painter calls it tuition expense when you're trying to do something and then you obviously fail and then you learn from that, and we all need that as well. But we wanted to limit our tuition expenses as well as grow. And so we reached out, we got a couple local grants, and we hired, like my sister said, third-party consultants that knew sales and knew retail sales and knew how to understand this whole foreign language for us. And so we started with a local Mennonite distributor in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. We got our first, like she mentioned, 14,000 yogurts, but then we had to quickly basically our co-packer was doing us a favor, and he's like, I'll give you guys this amount of time to get it together where my production facility is actually not losing money off of you. And so we went from the small Mennonite distributor that does about three states and then about 140 stores, and we were like, 140 stores, let's rock and roll. And then we're like, oh, we still have to sell more yogurt. A lot more. And so then we got into Giant, which is the local conventional store, but it had 300 stores. And we're like, finally, this is it. We don't need to do anything else. And then we're like, we still have to sell more yogurt. And that's when Natural Grocers actually reached out and picked us up. And we did that again by networking on LinkedIn. We messaged people. We asked everyone if they knew anyone. But most of the time, to get into these bigger accounts, you have to have a broker to even get you a meeting. And to even get that meeting, that's where those videos came in really well. And that's what helped us differentiate ourselves. Like, hey, we brought them to our farm before we even were able to talk to them. That was really important and a huge differentiator for us.
I got one for you. Grass-fed dairy fetches a pretty penny at the store, and yet food prices are really high. I'm wondering, do you feel like you have a moral responsibility to price your food affordably? And how have you gone about pricing?
We feel like we definitely have a huge responsibility to price it affordably, and that actually means ensuring that the price is at a high enough level that we can actually pay the farmers and keep the nutrients in the products. Think about dairy. This should be a little easy to break down. So you have your raw milk, goes to the processing plant. From the processing plant, a lot of times the cream gets sold to ice cream producers. The yogurt or the protein gets sold to protein powder plants. The yogurt gets cultured, diluted, and protein powders added to it. It does not have to be animal protein. It can be soy protein added to it to thicken it. That's where you get that grittiness in a lot of your Greek yogurts. And so the products are getting diluted because at the grocery store shelves, there's a threshold of this is how high you can charge for a yogurt. It needs to be higher for a real dairy yogurt to instill the product, the nutrients in there, and also to pay the farmers. If you look at our plant-based competitors, alternatives in the yogurt category, for instance, they're charging like $5 a unit, and they have less nutrients in it and less overhead fees to make those products. And so it depends on the product category, and I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all. We have to look at each industry and the products, but our core commodity products, like milk, eggs, dairy, and ground beef, right, or just regular like meat cuts, they need to be at a different level because we can't compete with the potato chips and the snack food who are kind of taking advantage of those higher opportunities. So we really like to look at it in a nutrient-dense way, and we need to be the most nutrient-dense for the cheapest price, right? But still affordable.
Yes, and that's totally true. And we want to also, like, we grew up totally poor, and we probably went to the grocery store shelves. We wouldn't have been able to pay for a $3 yogurt growing up. And so, like, part of what we're doing as Panel and Sisters, we have our impact department is talking to hopefully the right people and saying, like, everyone, no matter their income, should have nutrient-dense food, should have accessibility to nutrient-dense food. We grew up, like, we have a Dollar General in Westfield, Pennsylvania, and so you see families going in there, and that's what they're able to afford. And we know that food is hurting them. And so part of this is it's also educating the policymakers and the other, change makers to say, like, hey, we need not only accessibility to nutrient-dense foods in these areas, but we need them to be able to afford it. We shouldn't be able to have to strap the farmer to, like, bring that price down. But on the other hand, we want everyone to enjoy nutrient-dense food, and because it is preventative health care, it's what we need. People should have access to that. And so, honestly, it's a really difficult thing, but we're trying to get exactly this, like, balance out into the world.
We're big advocates on funding to the end, to the consumer, right? So they can have that choice to buy it. A program that came out was that different states had the opportunity to buy products from their state that were nutrient dense and buy them and give them back to the food banks at the full price that the food brands and the farmers needed. That was a really good opportunity, and that's a good program that actually helps keep the money flowing into the farmers and the nutrients into the consumers.
I hope that kind of answered your question.
We'll do one more. We're a little bit behind, but let's do one more, and then we'll wrap it up.
Were you able to have much input as far as the flavors, or you feel comfortable that you were able to maintain control of the product all the way through?
Yes, so we saw every single detail of our product is managed by us. Every single position of a blueberry on our cup was fought after by two sisters. So every single flavor we tested, Hayley mixed up in her home kitchen, and I mean, you can explain that process, but it was very much every enzyme, every cup, every foil, every berry, everything is sourced by us, and the recipe is controlled by us. Yeah. So we have Meadowberry is named after my daughter Meadow, and then we have a Savannah's Peach named after my other daughter Savannah, so two of our flavors. But it's really important for us, especially as we've gotten funding in from outside sources, to make sure that we're the ones leading on all choices, because we're a mission-driven company, and not just the yogurt, but how we're educating as well.
And that's why we only started with 5 SKUs, and now we're up to 8. So it's not too crazy, so it's like being very intentional with the few products we have. When our original business plan was, we wanted to have a lot of products and not sell them as far. So there's a lot of different strokes of the brush, but in order to get so big and be intentional, we kept our product line very slim. Thank you.
I know there are probably so many more questions, but we do need to wrap it up. So thank you both so much for all of the beautiful yogurt, the nutrient-dense yogurt, and for sharing your story with us today.
Yeah, thank you guys. We appreciate it.
Thank you.